Let's talk football once more and the situation at Newcastle. Perhaps slightly worrying if you are Newcastle fans when you've heard that there are comments in a recent press conference with the sporting director, Paul Mitchell, where he has openly criticised the previous system. He talked about their poor scouting, poor data and recruitment, and how they didn't sell players well enough to be, with regards to the PSR rules, he was saying. Yeah. There have also now been reports that Mitchell and Howe have clashed in meetings over the last few weeks over signings after Newcastle missed out on a number of notable targets, including the Crystal Palace defender Mark Gahey. Now, you know what? When the new group came in, it was all, this is an exciting future for Newcastle. You had Dan Ashworth there, of course, Eddie Howe coming in as well. This will be the first time that Newcastle fans will be thinking, oh, there's a bit of a chink now in the armour that we had. Admittedly, they've not been able to spend the money that they thought they might well be able to spend due to the PSR. But this is the first time that what was seeming rosy at Newcastle might not be the case.
Well, let's get it right. The rules changed along the way, haven't they, for Eddie, since he first got the job? They initially spent and they spent well and they spent big. People like Botman came in. Obviously, you've seen Isaac come in up front and others, Anthony Gordon. So they've had a number of transfers that have come in and it's worked brilliantly well for Newcastle. The rules have changed. Now we've got the conflict because not really involving Eddie and the club. I suppose the one thing you could make for Paul Mitchell's defence, I don't know Paul, but there's a different dynamic because you have to do transfers. So you try and maximise people you lose from the club and you try to pay the cheapest, you get people in. Eddie clearly wanted Mark Gahey. That was a number one target. And I think Paul Mitchell will probably argue, yes, we can go after one, but we also have to have others that tick the boxes that fit for what we need at Newcastle. So there might be a bit... Look, because I've said before, Eddie was done everything at Bournemouth. He was the main man. But Newcastle's a far bigger club with it's a club that can get 50,000 in and watch them. And if they get successful, it can be driven... The whole city can, be driven by Newcastle. So I sort of get from the club's perspective and Eddie's as well, he's trying to upgrade on what he's got and sees one player that he really believes makes a massive difference.
Yeah. And obviously the sticking point was the fee. And ultimately, Paul Mitchell and those...
Well, Palace have dug their heels in.
Oh, of course.
They've really dug their heels in. And I get that. They don't want to lose. They'd lost one.
Yes.
Let's say. They didn't want to go another. They lost Anderson. I was about to say Anderson as well. So they're probably thinking, we've done enough. If we're going to go another one, we're going to have to go far higher. We can't. We just can't let another one go.
Yeah. But do you also think the dynamic obviously has changed as well? Because when Eddie Howe's come in, he was working with Dan Ashworth. They would have built up that relationship, that working partnership that was fruitful, like you mentioned, with some of the players that they brought in. Now Paul Mitchell has come in. Eddie Howe, and I'm only, again, this is just speculation, this is just a conversation that we're having, but Eddie Howe's there thinking, well, you're not my man. You weren't the one I came in with. You weren't the one that we've had sit-down conversations many, many times about how we go about making us a top four contender season upon season. And he's already coming up with this sticking point with the Mark Gahey situation. And that is the biggest issue that probably Eddie Howe now has, is he does now have this new sporting director who has to come in and change things a little bit.
Well, he sort of indicated that before the start of the season, that things have to be right, and the work, how you develop your relationship, and everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet. All of that's really important, and Eddie's done a great job at Newcastle. Let's get it right. He's done a fantastic job, from how they score more goals than they did. There's been an upgrade in the football. Newcastle fans have loved going to the games. They have a real front foot team, and I think he takes a lot of credit for that. And he probably thinks he's in a strong position to make sure that he still gets what he wants, because ultimately he's trying to improve the team. That's a massive thing, that.
But who of the two has the power?
Well, at the moment, I think with the fans, it will probably be Eddie. And the fans won't get it why the club have not been able to push hard in the market.
But of the two that would last, the sporting director, you'd think, would have the longevity in some ways?
Yeah, to a degree. But the moment sporting directors make signings and they bring in a number in and they go wrong,
yes, true.
They're very vulnerable.
True.
Because people are held to account. Because if they've spent a lot of money...
But it'll be the manager that goes first because they didn't get the best out of those players.
That's what I said. We'll only find that out long term on someone like Paul Mitchell or any sporting director is if they fail in the transfer market. And yes, a manager can lose his job way before that gets to that stage, but he's probably safer. But I'd like to think there's a lot of money in the bank, and I mean as in his reputation, Eddie Howe. He's got a really good team together. Everybody fit, they can really challenge, and so hopefully they can find their differences or sort out their differences and keep the club driving in the right direction. The moment they're fifth in the table,
it's been a good start.
It's been a decent start.
Yeah. Okay.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.